Hi, welcome to the program. I'm so glad you joined me today. Let me just ask you this question. Are you unhappy? So many people are. In a time when we have more choices, more things to fill our lives with than ever in recorded history, women are actually saying they are more unhappy than any time in recorded history. So what's making everybody so unhappy? I will tell you today, it's about relationships. It's about nasty relationships. And we can see that everywhere in the culture. Well, in today's program, I'm going to share with you how we can move from nasty to succeeding and working together. And I'm so thrilled to have my husband, Drenda Keesee, joining me today. We've been married 38 years. Thanks for joining me, Gary.
Hey, you're welcome.
And we have 5 grown children together, and we have 9 grandchildren, which is the very best part of the whole thing. But I'm excited to share with you from my new book, Nasty Gets Us Nowhere, Women and Men Succeeding Together, released now, and you can get that book. We're gonna share some principles from that today, right, Gary?
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining me.
Hey, I want to dig into this book. I'm curious about it. Of course, I've read some of the content, and
Hey, you even contributed a
I
chapter.
did. I had a chapter.
You had to tell us what
And
men want from women.
This book is amazing. Of course, I've been part of the discussion of going into the book and writing it. And the first thing that catches my attention is the title, okay? Nasty Gets Us Nowhere. My question is, what specifically are you talking about when you used the word nasty?
Well, we can look around the entire world right now, and we see people being nasty, right, everywhere.
Yeah.
Relationships torn apart. But this would have been about 4 years ago, and I was in Washington, D.C., and I was actually walking down the street. It was a couple of days before a women's march that was happening in D.C., and there were women standing there that had T-shirts that said, "Nasty Woman." And I was just like, whoa, what woman wants to wear a shirt that says nasty woman? I mean, where have we fallen as a culture? Where are we in that, we want to proclaim our nastiness, and that does seem to be...
Doesn't sound very appealing.
No, it doesn't, but unfortunately that seems to be more normal than people being kind and working together and trying to make things work like people used to do. So whether it's marriage or it's relationships, it's friendships, it's family, we just see a disintegration of relationships. So I said to this woman, I couldn't resist. I went up to her and I said, okay, I can't resist asking you about your T-shirt. Why would you want to be a nasty woman? Why do you want to wear this T-shirt? And I'll never forget, she looked at me and she goes, well, if they say that we're nasty, then we just want to be, we want to tell what we're about, and we just want to tell people who we are. And it was just like, wow. And I kind of like, okay. But some people would say, because I knew she was a staunch feminist, which I used to be, and I knew where she was coming from, and I knew that could be me had God not gotten a hold of my life. And so I just said, well, some people would say it's nasty to kill 51 million babies. What would you say to that? And she kind of stammered a little bit. There were 2 younger women with her, and they looked to her for her answer, like, what is she going to say? And she goes, well, there's a movement that's, gotten contraceptives in people's hands now, and so there's less abortions. I'm like, there's not even less abortions. That would be a margin of error. So you can't say that. And so we're a culture that killing our own babies, men and women, the divorce rates are off the charts. Now we have all kinds of tension between ethnicities and racial tension and fighting and attacks on the Constitution and attacks on being American and all kinds of things. So this has just gotten so nasty, Gary. And I really feel like when I saw that T-shirt, it made me want to say, hey, it doesn't have to be nasty. There's answers.
What's happening in the culture with women and men? I assume not working together, if that's the case.
Well, I believe there's an agenda that started long ago to try to divide men and women, to make them feel that they couldn't work together. And I do believe it was a lie and an agenda was behind it. And since we've seen that, it just continues to unravel more and more. And even 4 years ago, I felt like that was an agenda as well. At the time, we had a woman running for president. And so to create more division and more differences, to get women to be polarized and to get angry at men so they vote this way. And those are tactics that are used. It's propaganda. And unfortunately, the family is the casualty, and children are the ones who end up suffering the most from these ideologies and agendas to divide men and women and to drive the divorce industry. And so, women and men are different. There's no doubt about that. But we've not been taught the differences. And when you already believe that you can't get along, which is what the culture has peddled to us, and all the women's magazines are constantly peddling to us. I don't pick up any women's magazine. As a matter of fact, I got where I don't even want to pick them up anymore because I didn't pick up any women's magazines that were really about beauty, fashion, supposedly, and how to give us tips and ideas for that type of thing. But really, there's political agendas, there's immoral agendas, there's pro-abortion agendas, there's anti-man, anti-male agendas to the max. And I really believe there has been a concerted effort to try to divide us. And as long as women believe that we can't get along, as long as men believe we can't get along, then we're not going to get along. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. What you believe, you're going to filter everything through that. And unfortunately, we have a generation of young women now who are hearing this message from older women, and now they're being indoctrinated to believe that marriage is taboo and there's no way you can get along. And so it is an agenda. We do have differences, but we have to explore those, recognize that they are by God's design, and there's a way to make those differences work together with respect and with love.
I agree. The culture is definitely kind of shifting roles. I mean, each side is trying to be the other side, and especially
to live without the other side. To basically say you can be independent. We've seen role reversals and that type of thing, and marriages have their own arrangements of what one person does better and another person does better, and those are all fine, between a husband and wife, what they decide to do, if one person's better at paying the bills together or whatever, cleaning, doing this, taking care of children. There can be some gives and takes and all of those type of things. The culture says that we don't need a man or a woman anymore. We don't need marriage anymore. We can just throw it all out and be independent, live our own self-focused life. But what people, I believe, are realizing, and I believe that's why there's so much unhappiness, is that a selfish life, a self-centered life, selfishness produces loneliness and brokenness and heartache, because we were never meant to live apart. We were meant to complement each other, to work together, and we bring things to the table in our differences. We bring things to the table that are beautiful, and without those things, the celebrations of life, the joys of life are missing.
Well, I mean, the Bible's very clear. He made them male and female. He didn't make them one. So
that's right. He made them different.
I want to ask you a question then. Your book has this premise that men and women together are more powerful, better, greater chance of success, greater chance of enjoying life the way God made it together, as opposed to, as you're saying, the culture is by itself. I'd like you to talk about that, because that's what your book's driving, is that we need each other.
That's a great question, Gary, and I'm going to get to that when we come right back. Do you want to end the war on sadness? Then click the button right there and subscribe.